Welcome to this week's episode of Reprint, brought to you by the Temple News. This is the podcast at the Temple News where we go over the stories printed in this week's edition. My name's Ariana Droz. I'm the podcast editor here at TTN, and this week I'm sitting with Assistant Features Editor Chloe Pabon and Assistant Opinions Editor Logan Thompson to chat about the pieces that they wrote on their perspectives with the closure of the Cecil B. Skatepark. So tell me a little summary about your piece. Who did you talk to? What were their responses?
Okay, so yeah, basically this piece is, the skate park closed down March 25th, and I kind of had this feeling that this wasn't something that was gonna just go away. I was kind of just walking around campus. I'm on 1300, so right by Sesame Moore, and I just was this is gonna be something that's gonna be surrounding my community and people that I know, and I wanted to know if other people felt the same because of the responses that I was getting from security and my friends about what they were hearing were kind of just angry. People were upset, and I actually didn't end up interviewing people myself. There was a freelancer that worked to interview other people, but he interviewed skaters that went to the park frequently. He interviewed a North Philadelphia native. He interviewed just students that used to go to the skate park and hang out around there, which is a good range of voices. And he also talked to a juvenile justice activist, which a voice wasn't included in there, but it was still good to have a nice background on that. But basically what I got from the responses was that the interactions that people had at the skate park were mostly positive. It was just a place for people to hang out and a place for people to share a community and have this space that's not that's informal, it's not manufactured, it's just super organic. And for it to be closed, people kind of just felt this is us being pushed away from a community that was once ours, and this is other people who've been pushed away from a community that's been there longer than we've all been here. And I think people were especially concerned about the teenagers that were there as well, because I think a part of Gen Z is a really big third space conversation that's going on. Yep. And that was something that was brought up a lot that I heard. And I think that we're super hyper aware of that, especially in North Philadelphia, and especially around conversations with gentrification. So that's a lot of what I was hearing as well. And I thought it was interesting. There were at least 6 different people that this freelancer spoke to, and they all kind of had similar thoughts. And I thought that was interesting that they all brought up third spaces and gentrification and pushing North Philadelphia teens out. I know one girl mentioned that a lot of her interactions with the skate park teens and people in North Philadelphia were pretty positive, but the moments that were not positive were more isolated incidents and have to do with harassment that are not formed because of children being in the park. They're more because of general things that women have to deal with every single day. And I think that was a part of it as well.
First, I want to talk about what the student responses were, and how this might manifest as student or community activism.
Yeah, no, there were definitely lots of conversations about student activism. I think one of the students, Roger Stripley, that we interviewed, he was one of the people that was really interested about the activism about it. Right after the interview, I was there for one of the interviews that Roger was in, and right after that, an hour or two later, the teenager was arrested, right outside the skate park, and I know that Stripley was not very happy about that. So they kind of brought up more conversations about activism, and I think that kind of added to the fuel of it. And I think it led to some criticism of university administration handling of the situation as well, and it kind of plays into a big role.
I saw there was even activism online in terms of debates on Yik Yak and Instagram.
What I was seeing was a lot of people were making posts. They were making posts about the skate park. They were just making their own stories, commenting about their experience and basically calling university out. And from the debates that I saw online, Yik Yak, obviously freshman core Instagram social media app, but it was people either being those kids are annoying, or we need to get back the skate park. And that's what I've been seeing. Also, flyers for Save the Skate Park all around my buildings and stuff. So definitely a lot of social media activism, and definitely people reposting and sharing each other's thoughts, which I think is interesting. Obviously, I'm in one bubble, but it's still interesting that at least a group of people cared about this.
Yeah. Let's also talk about the non-student that you interviewed.
Yes.
Was it a teenager that grew up in North Philly? Yeah.
He's 20 now, but
okay.
yeah. So he basically said that, like, from the experiences that he's had, like, it's been a place for him to grow and learn as a skater. He said that basically the Temple community took care of him. Like, he started skating when he was 18, came to Skatepark, and would basically just, like, practice. He would fall, keep going, and Temple students were always looking out for him. I thought that was really special.
That's sweet.
And I think that kind of reflects the relationship that is between us, especially when it's a little bit older than, like, 15 to 16-year-olds that are at the skate park sometimes. I think it really shows what kind of relationships can be formed through this public space.
Yeah. And so you had a bigger emphasis in your piece on language and how the message that the entire university got from the vice president of public safety, how the language that they used might shape public perception of the youth who were gathering at the park. Do you want to talk about that a little bit too?
Yeah. So, I mean, we all received the email. I mean, I was wondering if people were thinking the same thing that I was, and I think when
I definitely was. Yeah.
I think when writing something, you have to, like, know, like, if you're being accurate. And so it was like, am I going crazy? I started talking to other people, like, around me, and then I started, like, actually interviewing people, like, wondering what they were saying. And people picked up on it too. I mean, I didn't know if I was going crazy or not, but, like, people felt that it was not an appropriate term to use. And I was doing some digging when I was looking up, like, a specific way to explain this and sources, and we actually have an op-ed from the Temple News from, like, 10 years ago where we actually have already addressed this and have said, like, stop saying the word juvenile because it's extremely offensive. Mm-hmm. And I think we, as a society at this point, are kind of low-key desensitized to language and syntax and phrasing, and I think that it was important that other people cared and thought about this as well. It has, the word juvenile has a kind of a connotation, and, you know, I explained in the article that it leads to this adultification bias where black boys, but in mostly black women, black girls as well, it leads to them being seen as more mature and less innocent, and that can kind of trickle down into an effect that leads to the school to prison pipeline and just, like, higher incarceration rates, and being seen, like, in the eyes of the law as more violent and more angry than their white counterparts. Obviously, like, that is a bigger picture thing, but I still think that words are important, and phrasing that we use is important, and so did the people that I interviewed. They all thought the same as well, especially when we are referring to a community that is majority black. And we're all sending this out to thousands and thousands of students, and I think that it would better, like, we need to be understanding, like, where we're coming from when we're sending this messaging out, and it's also opens up a conversation from what I've heard about kind of including the community. And when I talked to the opinion editors as well for their study, when they talked to Jennifer Gerfin, she informed and said that the community members were not involved in this kind of skate park closure. So I think that also plays a part in it.
So what concerns from students or other people have been raised about over-policing and profiling?
I mean, multiple people said that the over-policing is a lot. They said that over-policing is a concern of theirs. They said that it's a lot. They said that it's kind of, people are very clearly being targeted. I think Hannah Foote that said that, I did not end up quoting, but she did say that there was one girl there at the skate park one day that she watched, and she was just, like, dancing, and, like, the cops, like, started just, like, going at her. I've heard, like, anecdotal things of just, like, aggression and tension between the police officers and the youth that are there. I mean, and to really describe this more, like, there are, like, at least, like, on Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays, there are at least 6 cop cars, like, lining Cecil B at all times. So that also, like, factors that in. I think people have also said that it feels kind of unnecessary that this is kind of happening. They feel like what I'm hearing and what I also feel is, like, these people are going to be here no matter what. Teenagers are going to be teenagers in any space. And when you have any kind of large gathering, people are going to, and it's hot, like, people are going to gather. Like, that's just going to happen. And what people have said is, like, somebody did say, like, I'm paraphrasing, but, like, if you're minding your business and you're going your own way, like, you're not going to be harmed at this point. Like, you're going to be fine. And yeah, they feel like it's definitely, like, just, like, targeted attacks. There was a longer quote from Roger Striplett that he said, like, this is a very clear attack on the Black North Philadelphia community, which we ended up not using, unfortunately. But yeah, that's kind of the overall sentiment.
Yeah. So I mean, going off of just, like, the community aspect, and just honoring and, like, being careful with how you tell the story, what was most important for you to highlight in the way that you were representing the information?
I think what was most important for me was to think about it as objectively as possible. I did have a struggle with explaining adultification bias, especially, because there's a lot of steps to go down to explain that. And I didn't want to make it my own opinion, and I also didn't want to be like, okay, this is what I think, and here's why. So that was difficult. And then I also wanted to make sure that I was representing each voice equally of what people were saying, even though they really were giving me similar themes, which was very interesting. I wanted to make sure that I kind of painted a really great picture of what they were talking about in their experiences, and which is difficult when you're not really given that. You have to kind of think about, okay, what is it like to be at the skate park? What is it like to be in that space? And what is it like to be at that time? And using that based on what they're telling me. But I just wanted to paint, like, a picture of how vibrant the skate park is. I mean, I feel like the readers needed to know, like, and people that are not aware of what the skate park is like, it's like, this is not some weird, like, badlands, like, desolate, like, weird place. Like, this is where people have spent their years and have spent their community growing up in and time. So yeah, I mean, it was definitely difficult to make sure that I used as sensitive language as possible. That wasn't difficult. That was just something I was really trying to focus on. But yeah, definitely making sure as descriptive as possible, thinking about the skate park. Yeah, and I think a part of that is, like, having the perspective that I had, and also having the voices of the people that I talked to. There were other people that I talked to that I didn't end up using their voices, but having that for context was amazing too, because they were really able to give me their experiences. I know a lot of people were telling me, like, they made most of their close friends there. They know all of their friend group from the skate park just hanging out there, and I think that was important to talk about as well. I did want to highlight that I just really liked hearing everybody's stories about being at the skate park. I mean, as a freshman, like, I haven't, fully gotten that full experience, but even just, like, walking past the skate park, or just, like, walking into, like, on Polite Walk, Light Horse Walk, and just, like, seeing it, like, that's really a part of, like, the experience of being at Temple. And for that to not be there, like, the past week has been so desolate, like, walking past and seeing just, like, emptiness, and maybe seeing, like, one or two, like, skaters, like, walking past, like, it's sad, it's upsetting. I want to hear music. I want to hear people, like, screaming and yelling and having fun and laughing, and it seems like other people want the same. So yeah.
Cool. Thank you so much for joining me.
Of course.
Let's talk about the opinion piece that you did on the skate park. I feel like it was a little different from the features piece in terms of you're allowed to be more opinionated, and I think that the interviews that you got show a different side of what students are feeling. So do you want to just give me a quick summary of your piece and talk about a little bit who you were able to interview and what the responses that you got were?
Okay, so this piece was an opinionated piece about the skate park's closure. My stance with this is to kind of just think and to raise questions on how Temple is addressing the skate park and the issues that have started and surrounded because of it. And just analyzing whether it was a control tactic or whether it was something that had the Temple students' interest at best of hand. So with the interviews, we talked to several students, and every college student we talked to, that is, they kind of had the same perspective of seeing how it isn't really fair that we're losing a resource in a community space and something that, is very influential as it's getting hot outside, and just a space for people to come together because of, safety issues or things that we as students can't necessarily control.
Yeah, so you interviewed some students, and did you also interview non-students?
Yes, we interviewed the Vice President of Public Safety, Jennifer Griffin, and she gave us some, enlightening responses as to whether the skate park was fully closed, like the regulations going on around it. And we found out that instead of it being fully closed, contrary to the barriers being there, it's just going to be open from certain time periods daily. She also let us know that an influencing factor for this decision was, the safety things at hand, students that aren't Temple students, high schoolers coming on campus and, fighting, and there being, dangerous situations there. So we got some context, but I dove into my opinion on what she was saying a little in the article, just noting on how I think that proactive steps to address the root issue at hand with the inaccessibility for these students to have after school programs should be the main focus rather than just restricting an area to get them out.
Mm-hmm. Was Griffin indicating that there might be steps to reverse this decision, this action, or maybe move forward in a different way?
I don't feel like from her interview there was any specific redirection with what's already happened. I feel like it was kind of on set, but some language that she did use is that this is a problem that they're still in the works of finalizing and seeing what's the best effective solution. So I won't say completely that the skate park will be like this forever, but this was just one of the main things that they thought to implement to kind of limit the danger surrounding people coming out as it's starting to get hot and things like that.
Yeah. So what was important for you to highlight in terms of the way that you presented this information, considering the balance of Griffin's responses versus the students that you had interviewed as well?
I think something important that I tried to highlight throughout the piece is that I can appreciate Temple acknowledging that safety is important, because as a student here, safety should be important to our higher-ups. But I think the approach in which y'all are trying to navigate a situation like this when it comes down to student safety on campus within a public area should be more layered in your, steps to solve that issue. I think to just go out and put a restriction on the skate park without, contemplating, is there some feeder programs that we can have within the school for these students who keep coming up here? Is there some type of after-school programs we can do to provide for them so they're not coming up here and seeking to do, dangerous things or rowdy things on campus? I think just highlighting that piece was kind of important, because I could understand that you have to do what you have to do if there are safety implications for students on campus, but I just think that there should be an approach that helps everyone at hand and not just Temple students, because we are in an area that's open to the public.
Mm-hmm. So what did the students have to say that you were talking to?
A lot of the students were saying free the skate park. They were really upset because not everybody had the prior context that it was closed due to safety rationales, and they just thought wow, we finally get something. This is a place for students to come and connect. It's getting hot, and then we take it away without any clear insight as to why. So there was definitely some frustration there. But for the few people that did know, it was about, the rowdy groups, large gatherings of younger kids on campus. They also had strong opinions on that, saying that we as students who pay tuition shouldn't be punished for people's inability to, act accordingly on Temple's campus. And that should be a issue that's resolved within maybe a public statement to the community or something along the lines. But everybody thought it was pretty unfair that we don't have the space open for us anymore.
So how is that manifesting in terms of student and community activism?
I feel like because of the displacement effect and everybody not having this space anymore, people are now trying to move to other spaces on campus to either, have that be the new space. Or I've seen a lot of flyers online with people like trying to make petitions to get it back open again. So everybody has a pretty strong stance, and I feel like you can only, with closing it down, it's not a solution because it's just redirecting that energy to other places.
Oh yeah, I did see that as a response in your story as well.
Yeah, just going back to that displacement effect, closing the skate park doesn't eliminate the gatherings. It just, like I said, moves them to different areas. And if safety was a matter at hand, the fact that it's being closed and restricted and there's no like language or any type of acknowledgement there of this not being a permanent thing, that poses the risk of that said danger or those gatherings just being moved to a different place. Also, I think the piece for me was about like something I kind of briefly touched on was accessibility and the control over that as well. Like I said, we're in the middle of a city, so I feel like it's kind of unrealistic for students and regular Philly residents to be on campus. But I do understand, Temple's perspective of not wanting them to come on campus and make students feel uncomfortable or not safe. So
yeah, I think it also just speaks to like a larger thing that we've been talking about over the past couple weeks, especially with our community issue having come out, like 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
Just like bridging the gap between North Philly and Temple and finding ways to have a healthier relationship that, like doesn't harm students and doesn't harm the community that has been living here for, forever.
Right, because we came into their area,
space,
so
yeah.
it's like, another thing, I feel like now that there are barriers in place, there's like been a psychological shift of, okay, this is an open space, I can bring my music, all my friends can jam out, the skaters can skate, everybody can do their own thing, to like, it's restrictive, I have to kind of be on point, I can't be as comfortable. And that was another thing that a lot of the students that I interviewed talked about. Like, they were saying that, yeah, it might have been closed for safety reasons, but now we don't even feel safe to be ourselves here because of how restrictive the area feels.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Reprint. You can find these stories and many more on our website at www.temple-news.com, and you can find our social media at the Temple News, and I will catch you for the next one.